Hi, I'm Charlie at Eightfold Property, and today I wanted to give you a brief overview of commercial rent reviews. Rent review provisions allow the landlords to periodically change the rent chargeable to the tenant based on a number of different factors. As a landlord, you'll want to review the rent within your lease to make sure your property is generating the maximum income possible. As a tenant, you obviously have different objectives and you'll want to ensure that your liability is minimised, and therefore it's really important that you get proper representation and go through an adequate negotiation process with your landlord. The rent review provisions are usually found in the schedules at the end of the lease, and what you'll usually find is the rent review dates are stipulated on the first few pages. Typically, commercial leases have a 3 to 5 year rent review pattern, although most modern leases now have moved towards a 5-yearly review. There are various ways in which the rent can be reviewed within commercial leases. First of all, you might have a stepped rent review. This is where the two parties agree on set uplifts at the granting of the lease. Second of all, you could have an RPI-linked rent review. This is where the rent increase is linked to the RPI index and will go up depending on the level of inflation. Thirdly, and most commonly, you might find that your lease includes an open market rent review provision. An open market rent review involves a periodic revaluation of the rent based on a vacant premises let on the open market. In order to arrive at a genuine open market rent, the lease stipulates a number of assumptions that are to be used when valuing the rent and what the property would achieve on the open market. What you'll typically find with these assumptions is the lease will stipulate that the rent is to be valued on the basis of a vacant premises, and it also disregards things such as tenants' improvements or any goodwill attached to the existing business in occupation. One of the assumptions you'll usually find is that if there's any disrepair or redecoration needed to the property, the rent review mechanism assumes that the property has been fully redecorated and is presented to the market in a good condition. In order to establish the new market rent, comparable transactions will be sourced. What you'll be looking for is properties in the local area that are of a similar type to the subject and have been let on or near the rent review date. Having devalued these rents, what you'll find is the surveyor may make deductions to the market rent when compared to the comparable transactions to allow for a true reflection of the subject property. It's typical in a rent review for both parties, landlord and tenant, to appoint their own surveyors to help guide them through the process. Another important factor in rent reviews is the use of the premises. If the lease allows the premises to be used for a variety of purposes, then the rent review will assume the most valuable use. So for example, if the premises had permitted use for both office and restaurant and takeaway, the restaurant and takeaway value would be the one used to set the market rent. If neither party can agree on the rent review, then there are established dispute resolution mechanisms in place. The parties may apply to an independent expert or an arbitrator who can then determine the new rent. It's worth noting at this stage that arbitration and determination can be a costly process, and ideally both parties want to agree the rent before getting to this stage. If you have any questions on any aspect of this video, or you happen to have a rent review coming up if you're a landlord or a tenant, please don't hesitate to get in touch and we'd be more than happy to see how we can help. I'm Charlie from Eightfold Property. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.